Christ lacking afflictions for the church. When mentioning Christ's lacking afflictions, this does not mean that Jesus has to bear his cross once more because there is something lacking in fulfilling his salvation on the cross to build up the church. Jesus' death on the cross is forever perfect and sufficient. First, that which is lacking in Christ's afflictions refers to the suffering that comes from forever embracing and loving the church. God used the disobedience of Israel, the church in the Old Testament, to display his mercy to the Gentiles. And for the church in the New Testament, he will once again use our disobedience as a basis of his mercy toward Israel. But in fact, the church in the Old and New Testament deserved to be deserted under God's wrath because of their disobedience. And if God deserted such a church under his anger, Jesus would not have to experience affliction. However, Christ gladly endures his afflictions by embracing and loving the church unceasingly. This is the first meaning of what is lacking in Christ's afflictions. Second, it refers to the suffering that comes from not giving up on the church and longing for its completion. Though Christ knows of the wretched, distorted image of the church, he gave himself up because he loved the church. However, his love does not stop with such mercy. Christ does not weaken the glorious goal of building up the church, which has no blemish, spot, nor wrinkles. If the standard is lowered, there is no affliction. And if there is no expectation, there is less suffering. But even today, Jesus does not give up and gladly endures his suffering, longing for the completion of the church. This is the second meaning of what is lacking in Christ's afflictions. Meanwhile, Paul is also declaring that he will gladly fill up in his flesh what is still lacking in regard to Christ's afflictions. And as he declared, he did not let go of his suffering that comes from embracing and loving the church. Therefore, I endure everything for the sake of the elect, that they too may obtain the salvation that is in Christ Jesus with eternal glory. Not only so, but Paul also did not give up on the suffering of longing for the completion of the church. He declares that his calling is to raise up the members of the church to be fully mature in Christ. I have become its servant, so that we may present everyone fully mature in Christ. In the movie, The Cure, the protagonist is an 11-year-old boy named Dexter, who contracted AIDS through blood transfusion. Under the prejudice that AIDS is a cursed and incurable disease, Dexter lives in constant fear of death. Meanwhile, his neighbor Eric, a loner who had experienced no love since his childhood, could not stand his own loneliness and hops over the fence and cultivates an unprejudiced friendship with Dexter. After reading in the newspaper that a doctor in New Orleans had found a cure for AIDS, Eric convinces Dexter for them to go on a journey by leaving on a raft in search for the cure. But during the journey, Dexter's health gets worse, and they are forced to return. In the end, Dexter dies. However, the movie shows that Eric and Dexter had in fact found two cures. The first cure is depicted when Eric gave his stinky basketball shoes to Dexter, who was distraught by nightmares of him falling into a bottomless pit. Eric told Dexter, "Here, hold on to this when you sleep, and if you wake up and you're scared, you'll say, 'Wait a minute, I'm holding Eric's shoe. I must be here on earth, safe in my sleeping bag, and Eric must be close by.'" This is an expression of love in which one will never leave a friend's side. The second cure is depicted when Eric floats away one of Dexter's funeral shoes on a river that is headed toward New Orleans, where the cure is supposed to be. This is a sign that he would not give up on the hope of finding a cure for his friend. And through these two cures of love and hope, Eric, who who himself was a loner and was never loved, also experiences healing. Suffering to ceaselessly embrace and love the church, and to not give up on the hope of the completion of the church, is Christ's lacking afflictions for the church, in which we must also gladly fill up in our flesh. Colossians 1:24. Now I rejoice in what I am suffering for you, and I fill up in my flesh what is still lacking in regard to Christ's afflictions, for the sake of his body, which is the church.